screen. And afterwards, after those presentations, we will have Q&A session. So Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, thanks for the kind word of introduction. First of all, I have to pass you all the greetings from Ambassador Claude Wild, who is currently in Switzerland. So it's a pleasure to welcome you all for this video conference for an important topic, digital transformation. And I must say that until recently, this was already quite a trendy topic, but sometimes it was quite an abstract concept. And then came the pandemic with COVID-19. We had to adjust very quickly, very dramatically, and we had to go digital. And it is the same for all of us in Switzerland, in Ukraine, all over the world, for companies, for authorities, for embassies, and you can bet that for a diplomat like me, it was quite a tremendous adjustment. We are used to shake hands, to meet people. It's quite dramatic, but with this kind of quick transformation, this change brings, of course, challenges, but also opportunities. And I hear someone.
Can you mute your?
Честно говоря, я первый раз слышу нечто подобное, но также у нас, если что, идет трансляция на Facebook.
I'm sorry. Can you mute your screen?
Okay.
Yeah.
Switzerland, you know, has a kind of leading position in some part of digitalization. If I think about fintech, blockchain, we are also speaking about the crypto valley between Zurich and Zug. And we are also active here in Ukraine regarding digital transformation. For instance, the cooperation program of Switzerland is supporting Ukrainian authorities to go digital, also with projects like DIA and others. The embassy is also doing some the so-called Swiss Digital Hub meetings for companies. These are two examples. But
how do you support Ukrainian authorities? Do you give money to them, or do you transmit some knowledge?
Both. Our cooperation program, it's 27 million Swiss francs, euros per year. And in this envelope, part of this is also dedicated to a different domain, but digitalization is one part of it. I will stop here, and now I'm looking forward to hear a Swiss expert, Nicolas Bürer. As Anna mentioned, he's a managing director of Digital Switzerland. Nicolas has a career in business, as entrepreneur, with companies like Deal or Movu. And I think Nicolas was also awarded as a business angel of the year 2018. So he must be in Switzerland. He must be the right person to discuss that topic. So thank you again. I will stop here, and Anna, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And indeed, I am really impressed that you are awarded, Nicolas. So obviously you should know better than us what to do in this current world, how to better adapt to the new reality, and how to be even more digital compared to what we are already currently. So Nicolas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be here. To be honest, I would have preferred to be in Kiev than be at home in front of my computer, which I see a bit too much in the last couple of weeks, but very happy to be here. I will now share my presentation. Please give me 2 seconds.
We see nice landscapes of Switzerland.
I hope you can see it. That's the Matterhorn. We know that, of course, the most famous mountain of Switzerland. But today we're not going to speak about tourism and Switzerland only. I would like really, let's face it, the last 8 weeks, it's about 8 weeks now in our regions in Europe, were really sudden and crazy and completely unexpected. And as always in a crisis time, we change completely our mindsets. And I would like to show in the next 25 to 30 minutes some numbers, some anecdotes, some examples, what's happening in the world, what's happening in Switzerland, and how can we react as a country, the tiny Switzerland, or the big Ukraine, or the world as a general, how we should react. Because yes, the world is changing, and now I'm really sure we will never go back to the exact same world as we had still in February, because our mindsets are changing due to the crisis. So, I mean, this one is not a surprise, but you know, I'm working at Digital Switzerland as a managing director since 4 years, and going all over the country and also abroad quite a lot to really kind of preach digitalization as something which is necessary, it's not something which is bad. There are some risks, of course, in privacy and data. We have to take care of them, but this is an innovation. This is a progress for the human beings. This is something which is just going to be part of our life, as for example, cars just arose 120 years ago. It's the same, it's a development. And in the last 4 years, you know, the people, they are listening to you, of course, and saying, yeah, yes, of course, we have to do something, the banks, the insurance, and many companies. But so a lot of time, I had the feeling that there is no sense of urgency. The people, they want to invest some money in digitalization process, but there is no really sense of urgency. If it's this year or next year, it's fine. Now the situation is new. There is a sense of urgency. All of the society, not only the economy, we had to get really digitized in the last couple of weeks, which is an impressive process. To give you an anecdote about the education system all over the world, including in Switzerland, there were not really, at the primary, secondary school, there were not really, let's say, progressive on technology and tools. And they really had to change upside down within 1 week, because kids were at home and they had to continue learning with the kids and using Zoom, for example. Quite funny to see Zoom videos with the entire class, but they had to, and they did. I was quite impressed by many teachers, they did. But again, as always, we're humans, we need a sense of urgency, and now we have it. As you can see on this one, is quite impressive. I just take some numbers also to give the global approach where we are. As you can see here, the digital adoption, so people using the tools have been massively increased in banking, but also much more, right? Entertainment, and you can see the different tools. And I'm sure, and I will repeat it a couple of times, sorry if I did do it too much, we won't go back to the numbers we had before. It's really a change which is staying, which is going to stay. I believe the world will get hybrid. We won't just stay digital and at home, because let's face it, it was fun for 2 months, but on the long run, it's not really fun. We want to meet people, we need social contact, etc. So the world is going to be much more hybrid than it was in the past, which means digital channels, digital way of communicating will increase, of course. And you can see on this one, I think it's quite impressive. Look at China, at least the 1 or 2 months. Now you can ask, but what's going to happen in a few months or in a few years? Okay, fair enough, we'll see. But as you can see, and we see already right now in Switzerland since 1 week, a bit more than 1 week, 1.5 weeks, we are out of the lockdown. Schools started, partially at least, restaurants started, etc. Some companies still stay home. Some other companies go to the office, but very interestingly, people stay home. We continue to consume through e-commerce as we did before, for example. We continue when we go to the city by biking, because we don't want to go to the public transportation because of the risk, of course, of the disease. So it's quite interesting to see the mindset change. It was so sudden, so unexpected. We get used to stay home and to consume and buy per e-commerce much more as we did before. Also on this one, dramatic increase of people working home. And I'm looking forward in the next couple of weeks and months to see if people will go back full time to the office. I don't believe it. I believe in some jobs, of course, where representation necessary is, of course, people will go back 5 days a week to the office. But I believe in many of the jobs, as you said, I'm also invested in different startups, not only in Switzerland, but mostly here. And I believe digital technology startups, for example, but also corporates, and also we at Digital Switzerland, we won't go back 5 days a week in the office. I'm quite sure. Flexibility in the way we work will increase. As Jeff Bezos said, and I really like what he said about it, he said it's not about work-life balance, it's about work-life harmony. And the harmony means both are merging, are fusioning somewhere. And I believe that's the truth. Let's face it, when someone is home, you don't know what he's doing. So he's doing both. And when you're in the office, you're also doing a bit of both. So that's the future we're going to enter. More home office and more flexibility, more harmony, hopefully. I love this one. I really love this one. Digital Switzerland has said we want Switzerland to be more innovative, more digital, and to keep a very good position in the rankings. It's all about having jobs and prosperity in the country. And the job we will have done in the 3 to 5 years has been done now in 8 weeks. That's the reality. Awareness about digitization is a kind of done. Now it's about changing. It's about really being innovative, because we should not forget, in crisis time, greatest company ever like Airbnb, Uber, whatever, great companies were born. Google was born in the 2000. So right now, there are great entrepreneurs thinking about new business models, and they will make huge companies. And it's also what we're trying to do, to look for what can be the next business model, the next company, the next industry. We will speak about industry later on, who can arise now and next year and be a giant company in 10 to 20 years. I won't go into all details here, just one, which is, I think, really important. The first one, upper left, the technological literacy. We should not forget right now, awareness has been done, yes, but still there are many risks due to digitization. No? Privacy, as we know, cybersecurity, cyber fraud, losing data, having fraud with data. So we have to be careful about this one, which means there is a big part of the population who doesn't really like everything about digital. They are the bad robots, you know, they see Terminator only, which is fine, which is a part of the view. We have to respect it. What we have to be careful is to make sure people, most of the people will maybe not really like, but they will accept it at least, and they will use it. For example, I speak about simple stuff, mobile payments. You know, I don't speak about AI or blockchain yet, but some simple usage. We hope people will address it, will understand it and use it. And most importantly, is not as consumer, most importantly is as employee. When you're an employee, you need to address maybe some leakage you have in your skills, in your digital skills. And that's really important. I believe this is a risk of the next decade, or the next generation, is to have a social clash because you will have an elite which is going to be very strong. As you see sometimes in the US already, what's happening in Silicon Valley is amazing. There is an elite. And then in the rest of the country, you might have some people who are suffering a lot. We have to be careful right now due to the COVID boost for digitization that the rest of the population and the workers will learn a lot about digital skills. I believe it's one of the big risks of the next 10, 20 years. And I love this picture, which is about Switzerland, but I believe all over the world it's the same. We only have 5,000 jobs in Switzerland. We are small, huh? And this study was, by the way, done in 2019. And they say that 1 million of the jobs will disappear in the next 15 years about. So 15 years, so first of all, it's 20% of the jobs, which is amazing. But it's not new. If you look at the third revolution, which started in 1980, or if you look at the second or the first revolution, every time, interestingly, we lose about every fifth job. Now there is something new. It has never been so quick. And I believe due to COVID, we don't speak about 2030. We speak about 2025, 2027. And it's amazingly quick, 5 to 10 years, it doesn't matter, to replace 20% of the jobs with new profiles. At the last revolution, it took about 20 years. And if you look at the first and the second one, it took more than 2 generations. So we had time, you know, I'm 40, to be 40 plus, we say, you know, I have to work 20 more years, everything is fine. Today, it's not possible anymore. Also myself and everyone here at this conference, we really have to learn every day. Otherwise, the risk not to have a great job or not to have a job anymore in 10 years is really high. So we really have to...
The question is what to learn, Nicolas. You know, it's necessary to understand what to learn.
It's, you know, of course, depending on the industry, but it's about learning about digital transversality. It's one of the points. So not only using social media, not only using computer, you have to look in which industry you are, of course, in which areas. Are you in marketing? Are you in sales? You know, if you're a sales employee, for example, you will have to learn to use CRM as never before. Maybe you can learn doing videos with your customers, etc. So learning to use the tools your employer might expect you to use in the future. I think it's important. I encourage also my employees. We are 20 people now in our team. We're quite small. I want everyone to invest at least 5 days a year outside of the company to learn something new. It might be AI, it might be blockchain, it might be about automated mobility. It might be quite simple about coding. You know, we are not using coding in our association, but who knows how we will work in 2 years. And it's about learning something you will use in 2 years. That's important. And it's not easy for everyone because we see the job we are doing today and no, I don't need that. And I say, be careful. You might use it in 2 years. Did I answer your question?
And yes, and also just add one joke. The other day we were meeting with a hairdresser, the stylist, and she was saying that, look, I understand that pandemic brings so much of change and it's necessary to be innovative. But the question is how such specialist as a hairdresser or the person who gives massage, how he can be digital. So what shall they do in order to change their mindset and their way of providing services? So what would you advise to them?
Sure. In this case, and it's an interesting one, I think it's not only about the employees, but also the employers. So very simple examples. I believe we should be able, and it's not everywhere the case, neither in Switzerland, no? To just book online within 10 seconds the next time I want to go to the hairdresser. Very simple stuff. Then I want to leave back the hairdresser. I want to pay mobile. I want to have a mobile payment system. We have one in Switzerland. I use a credit cards, etc. Simple stuff. Then I want them maybe to send me reminder for the next time I join, etc. That's the simplest one. The next one is maybe using voice to book. So using an assistant to book the next appointment, you know. So there are some very simple stuff. As a hairdresser in the job as of today, as a masseur, I believe in the next 2 to 3 years, you will still be a masseur. But it's all around the way you treat your customer, which is very important. This shirt I have here, I went last year to someone in Zurich to make them customize. And I was quite shocked how she did it. Great person, by the way. Very social, very good at selling. Fantastic. She took everything, you know, all the notes on paper. She'd never send me an email after some month to remind me, hey, maybe you need some new, you know, some new shirts. Why not ordering some new? I have all your sizes. Never, never. And that's a pity. She missed upselling with me. And in the worst case, I will go to another one because I don't want to repeat again all my sizes. So for small SMEs, it's about basic. It's not about blockchain yet. It's not about AI yet, I believe. It's about basics. It's about having your data on the cloud, for example, and so on. But do it. So many of them are not there yet, believe me.
Nice advice. And by the way, 170 persons are listening to us, and I guess that they will find some good advices for their activities. So as far as I understand already at the current stage, that it's necessary to surround you by the modern technologies and the modern way of supplying your services and products.
Yes, and if I just go back on this one, I just would like to speak about the horizontal innovation. When you look about the platform business, Uber, Airbnb, 2 great examples. They disrupt, let's face it, they really disrupt the value chain. They go to you and me as a private driver and say, hey, don't you want to drive for me? And the same for Airbnb. They go to you and me and they ask, don't you have place sometimes in your flat? And it's a disruption. And if you speak to drivers, when was that? I believe 8 years ago, they would have laughed at you, really, if you would have told them, I might be your next competitor, myself as a private driver, without license. They would have laughed at you. It happened. So it's always tricky, you know, when you look at today, what's going to be the next big disruption? We believe there won't be, but there will. Banking might be the next one, huh? We will see. That's important. Your next, as a business, your next competitor is not the one you have today and is a competitor coming from another industry, is a technology company. That's important. And many people neglect it. And we have a risk in Switzerland to take one strong industry of our country, which are watches, doing watches. And I believe if you look at the numbers today, the most sold tech watches per year worldwide is already Apple. It's not a Swiss watch anymore. So we still sell a lot our Swiss watch because many consumers in the world, they don't want to have technology in their watch. You know, we already have our mobile and everything, and they appreciate just to have something convenient and beautiful, whatever. But be careful, because this technology watch, they will be always better. They will increase convenience for consumers, and I believe their market share will dramatically increase. And we have to be careful in Switzerland with our traditional watch industry not to lose too much market shares in the next couple of years.
Good. Thank you very much. Do you have more slides, or shall we already skip to Nicolas? Or not to Nico, to David?
How much time would I have? Maybe if I can just show you, if I have 5 more minutes, is that okay?
Like 5 maximum, so that we can give time to David as well. To
okay, no, I do less. Look at these numbers, maybe. We have to be, on the first one, it's for the business people. Half of the people are changing their minds, how they consume. That's important. And COVID is the cause for that, definitely. So be careful when you have a business to be extremely consumer driven in the next couple of years and even months, because people are changing their mind as always after a crisis time. It's very important. And last but not least, then I'm finished after that, the last numbers, which is really true. don't tell your kids what they will do in 10 to 15 years, because most of the job they will have as a choice don't exist today, really. As that's important. We are coach, sparring partner, everything. As an anecdote, one of the newest jobs you can learn today and study in Switzerland is drone pilot. So drone pilot is one of the jobs you can learn in a specialized university, and you can make out of it a job and make a salary. It was unthinkable even 2 years ago to have such a job. Drone was just for hobby. But now there are companies hiring drone pilots, just as a small example. And I believe in the blockchain space, of course, computing space, but not only, I believe also in the creativity space and social space, there will be many new kind of jobs who will arise in the next couple of years, just as a food for thought for yourself also for the next 10 years and for your kids. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nicolas. But by the way, what would be the advice from your side to parents of those kids? What should they do in order to allow the kids to have better future? So what kind of, I don't know, knowledge or skills they should develop in order to be more adaptive to the current world?
So myself, I have two of them. They are 9 and 11. And I try to make sure. So I believe the current kids generation, they are much more independent as I was, for example, when I was 10. I was in a small village. There was no mobile. There was just TV, no internet even. So as of today, they know everything, which is quite insane. It's very early. And I take care of 2 points. I want them to be curious. I want them to be social, you know. I don't want to have like two introverted people, but that's my opinion. I believe leadership skills, social skills, creativity skills will be extremely important in the future. So that's the first one. And I want them to learn about technology. It's not only about coding, it's about understanding what's happening, you know, in the future between a car, between your mobile, between the infrastructure. I want them today starting coding, and in the next couple of years, learning about technology. So that's the 2 points I will focus on, and they will choose their job.
Nice. Thank you, Nicolas. So it's already a nice advice tool, advice kit for our kids and us who are actually raising our children. Good. Let's go to the presentation and insights from David. David, what would you suggest to the business community, to us, how to become even more innovative compared to what we are currently?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, you know, the COVID situation is absolutely, as Nicolas was saying, will accelerate the way we work. No longer will working in an office between 9 and 5 days a week be normal. So I think very quickly now, things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all the other hosting platforms will absolutely help accelerate the way we collaborate. And I think it's really important to understand what platform you jump on, because there's so many out there, and it's really easy for you to spread everything across 10 different platforms, and it becomes really complicated and no one understands what's on what platform. So I think for me on day one is understand what you want to achieve and where you're going to achieve it. I think is really important. And let me just share my screen. So I just want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and share some of the things with you today. And really, the next 15, 20 minutes or so is just about, you know, why do we need to worry about innovation? And for me, it's just going back to the basics of what is innovation, because, you know, it's a really tricky buzzword that I hear all too often. And as these quotes are uploading, you know, if you were to ask people what they think innovation is, actually, I think everyone would have a totally different opinion of what the word means. And that can be super, super vague at best. But at worst, you know, it can be actually quite dangerous, because I've heard so many senior members, senior leaders of companies use the term innovation, and, you know, simply by saying, oh, we're innovative, or we're an innovative company, or we're doing innovation, they think, you know, that really fixes everything and it's the answer to everything. But actually, it's just not a buzzword anymore that just fixes and will secure their future. It's just not the case anymore. So I saw this interesting report that KPMG did. It was published at the end of last year, and they asked 215 companies to assess their innovation program and place it in a maturity category of 1 to 5. And what was really interesting, and what I would just want to share with you, is what some of that data was showing. So actually 12.5%, 13% of respondents reported that the innovation that they were doing was very ad hoc. So this was very random, it was non-strategic, and there was massive overlaps. 47% of respondents, this is a majority of respondents, were saying that their innovation was emerging. So it was a little bit more organized, projects were prioritized, so they had 5, 6, 7 key things that they were working on. Innovation had a higher profile throughout the company, and there was a little bit of a system in place. Stage 3, so what you develop to next, is you go to have a more defined innovation program. So it's more strategic, it's linked to some specific objectives, whether that's business objectives, consumer objectives, and the process now is becoming more routine. So what I found really interesting is 87% of respondents put themselves in stage 1, 2, and 3. And I'm absolutely certain that the majority of people on this call would agree and say, actually, you know what, we're probably in stage 2, or we might even be in stage 3. So where you go from stage 3 and where you start really seeing the benefits of being an innovative company is you become a totally integrated. So actually now innovation is more mature, funding is secured, so it's something that's regularly discussed, and innovation is now linked to key strategic decisions, corporate development units, and the company vision. So you know what the company vision is, you know where you need to be in 10 years, and innovation is going to get you there. And more often than not, the outputs of the innovation, whether that's products, technology, services, is regularly discussed and advertised. And finally, the last stage, stage 5, where 2% of respondents sat, is stage 5, where it's totally optimized. So this is the holy grail of innovation in your company. And this is where innovation is totally repeatable. It's part of the company DNA. So actually, it's not just innovation in an R&D center, for example. It's actually innovation in warehousing, in advertising, in finance, in manufacturing. And you actually empower your employees to be innovative. So the key take home really from this is, if you're in stage 1, 2, or 3, that's fine. Don't worry, you're not on your own. Peers are in the same place. But actually what's really important today going forward is to think, how do I go from being in stage 2, 3 to actually lifting myself up to being in stage 4 or even stage 5?
But before, maybe, I'm sorry for interrupting, I'm just having a question, David. Why people don't want to innovate? They don't want to make it, or they don't know how to innovate?
Yeah, and I think it's a good question. And in the further slides, I'll talk about a little bit what having an innovative culture is, and what being innovative means. So I'll discuss it then, if that's okay. But just going back to innovation, and just trying to define what innovation is. And for me, there's 3 key types of innovation. There's incremental innovation, or this is Horizon 1, so it just depends on what term you're used to. And this is really innovation that's core to existing consumers, existing markets. And this is innovation that gives you the next version of your product or a slightly better service. And about 48% of people tend to sit in this area. The next type of innovation is adjacent innovation, or Horizon 2. Now, this is innovation that essentially takes your core capabilities, whatever that is, and applies it to a new opportunity or a new business or a new category. And about a quarter of the respondents sort of sit in this category. And the final one, and the most tricky one, is transformational innovation, or Horizon 3. So this is a type of innovation that really creates new businesses to serve new markets and new consumers. And as Nicolas alluded to, it's absolutely the most challenging, higher risk one, but actually the opportunity, if you get it right, could be really big. And that's where the sort of average respondent sat. Very quickly just show you this. This is comparing what the role model is. And this is people that are sort of in the stage 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And actually what you see is they spend less time thinking about the incremental innovation, the steady states, and more time focusing on actually what is truly transformational, what is going to move the category along, what is going to move my business along. I mentioned that transformative innovation, and Nicolas said the same. You know, it's much, much, much tricky, and it's really hard, and it's harder than it's ever been before. But one thing that's really important to know is if you just sit still and if you do nothing, you will, I guarantee you, you will be disrupted. Someone or something will come along and will totally take your market share. And that's clear, and I see it all the time in loads of different industries, and I'm sure Nicolas does as well. You know, there's new startups everywhere, and you know, startups are brilliant. And I come on to a second, you know, some of the challenges that startups may face. The way that we can really leverage some of the creativity, some of the exciting bits from startup is actually think about how you have an open innovation category. And this is, so when I say open innovation, this is you looking at the outside world and actually utilizing some of the great mindsets, some of the ideas, some of the technologies that other people have. And the benefits could be absolutely huge. You know, they could either help you accelerate your pipeline, they could uplift internal capability. So actually, instead of, you know, recruiting a specific group of people or developing a specific technology, actually, it might be better to partner with someone who's already experts in that specific field to save you loads of time and to absolutely accelerate things. So I think that's something really interesting to think about. So going on to what innovation means and, you know, how do you create this culture? If I was to ask people to name 2 companies that you really envy for innovation, I would suspect that most people would say Apple or Google. I wish I was more like Apple, and I hear it all the time. And that's just not right, because what Apple do, what Google do, is totally different to what you need to do in your company and in your environment. But I think one bit of information, or one sort of key advice I'd say is have someone who is responsible for innovation in your company. Have someone who goes to bed, who wakes up, being responsible for innovation, whether that's the strategy, the pipeline, the people, whatever it is. I think you absolutely need that one person who owns the whole pipeline. And I've seen that great innovative cultures spend loads more time doing the really important things like listening, adapting, experimenting, and more importantly, actually executing, and less time on the boring, the draining internal politics and all the other sort of negative bits. There is now no time to waste. I think we need to totally get out of that mindset that we've really been stuck in for a while, and just get on with a job that needs to be done.
But some would say to you that, yes, it's necessary to have a separate person in the company for responsible for innovation, but at the same time, that person should be also equipped with certain budgets, right? And in many cases, no, it's not obligatory or not. I mean, budget.
Yeah. That person needs to know what their scope is. And you know, if you look at the stage 1 sort of people, innovation is all ad hoc. It's 1 or 2 people, or it's maybe, you know, a small % of company revenue. But actually, to have something that's really meaningful, you need to have a clear set of cash, a clear budget assigned. And it's also understanding the difference. So if I looked at something really specific like research and development, you know, it's understanding what research and development actually means. You know, for research, you may spend, you know, a random number, £100,000 on research. You need to understand that actually you may not get any return on that £100,000, but what you will get is more experience, more knowledge, and a better understanding going forward. But some of the other advice, you know, that I've picked up on in my lot of short career, I guess, is, so I've been heading up an innovation team for a while now. And some of the things that I found that really helps, and some of the advice I'd really like to share is, one of the most important things for me is communication. People have to be clear on what they're communicating about, but also it doesn't really matter where ideas come from. And now, you know, especially as we're moving into more of a digital age, understanding how you can really digitize your brainstorming sessions, for example. You know, it can be challenging at times having a Zoom meeting with 20, 30 people, but there are loads of different softwares out there now that'll help you, you know, have virtual whiteboards, virtual post-it notes, so you can still host the same style of brainstorming session, but in a totally digital way, which I think is great. The second one is about the actual idea or the core technology. And for me, it's really important to understand that no ideas are bad ideas. What I often find is bad ideas or something that's totally crazy. Yes, it's a bad idea and it's crazy, but actually what I find is people tend to add on to that. So add a little bit more, so it becomes a less bad idea, and then add a little bit more. And then all of a sudden you've gone from something that's really terrible into something that's really brilliant and exciting. And actually that is your next big idea. The next one is keep things simple. There is no time to overcomplicate things, whether that's overcomplicating a process, overcomplicating an idea. You know, if you start to think that your concept, technology, service, product is becoming too difficult, my advice is just stop, take a step back and look at it again. You know, if it's becoming complex, that means you're making it too complex, and there is almost always a much easier way of achieving that benefit. One of my favorite ones I picked up from one of my mentors a while ago is to absolutely question everything. So never take anything for granted. And I think that's really important. So all too often, I've read conclusions, I've read summary statements, where they've totally missed the key findings of some of the data. Now, I know this is really specific, but it can be applied to everything. So take a message, really always question and never assume that anything is right. The fifth one, and I think this is also quite important, is as you're innovating and as you're thinking about new technologies, new processes, new developments, you make a decision. So you start off with a brief or whatever, then you make a decision and you go down a decision tree, and you make another decision and another decision. And all of a sudden you find yourselves 5, 6 layers down, and you realize, oh, this isn't going to work. This isn't right for the consumers. This technology isn't possible. So you need to go back and figure out where you went wrong. What's really important is you don't just go back 1 layer, 2 layers, but you go back all the way to the top and start again, because you may find that actually you took a wrong turn right at the first decision and you went left instead of right. So it's really important to always go back to the top and go, right, here is the idea, let's go again. And finally, something that I find amazing, and it's only quite recently I think I've experienced this, is diversity. So you absolutely need to have a totally diverse team, a totally diverse group of people that have different mindsets, because different people have different backgrounds, have different capabilities, have different understandings of the world. So that for me is totally fundamental, and I guarantee you that you'll see things that you've previously missed. Something that's important to someone can be really passionate about something that you just thought wasn't important. In terms of numbers, you know, I get asked this question a lot, you know, how big your pipeline, how do I get to an idea? And, you know, it's really hard to quantify, but I'd say, you know, to get to, you know, 1, 2 or 3, or sometimes 0 products or services, you often have to start with about 100 different thoughts. You know, and these 100 thoughts lead to about 10 to 20 different ideas. And then once you've tried them, refined them, you end up with maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things at the end. So, you know, you do need to have quite a big pipeline at the start, or ideas, to end up with something that's really quite exciting.
By the way, question to you in connection to that, can you link your innovation observation to your next generation product to make it come alive even more, please?
Absolutely, and I think that's really important to think about what your product strategy is, to go, today, consumers want this specific technology, but actually, this is where we need to get consumers, or this is where we think consumers will be in 5, 10 years' time. and you absolutely need to plan that today, it might be because the technology is not available, or it's not relevant today, or the market's not quite ready, or the consumer's not ready, but you absolutely need to be thinking about it, especially as well from an IP perspective. You know, there's loads of people filing IP, and you know, if you want to own that technology, you need to think about it really early on. A couple of small things. So I've come from a small startup, and we got acquired by Imperial Brands, and they were a big corporate company. And some of the things that I've experienced is with big companies. If you're a big company, I would absolutely stop and review your processes, you know, review your innovation process, because if it's a process from 3-4 years ago, it's probably not right today. So I think I'd absolutely refine it and keep it simple, keep it really simple, 5 or 6 key steps that'll absolutely help speed things up. And I guess for a small company, it's really important to make sure that you keep the agility that you have, but actually add some structure around that agility, because I often find small startups make loads of mistakes, loads of simple mistakes, that actually, if you'd have kept it simple, have some structure around it, would have massively helped. And quickly, just before we run out of time, so I just want to say a little bit about consumers and, you know, predicting the future, which is almost one of the roles I've got. Now, you know, there is no magic crystal ball. No one can tell you exactly what will happen in 5-10 years time. You know, if I had one, I would share it with everyone. But to understand what influences the innovative ideas that we have, we really need to understand consumers. And looking at this diffusion of innovation curve, which really talks about the rate at which technology or products are adopted, you need to understand who your early majority and your late majority people are in the middle. So that's where you gain the majority of your revenue. But to understand what these guys need, you need to understand who your innovators and early adopters are. You know, the people that are right at the start of the curve, people who buy the version 1 of something that's potentially going to be exciting. And you need to understand what products or services you can offer to these guys, which will then feed down the pipeline. But then how do a question I often get asked is, sorry, Anna, go on.
Yeah, because we are running out of time, and we have a few questions actually to pose to both panelists.
Sure, okay, please.
And maybe just to ask a question which was raised in the chat, can both of you share your presentations? Can we send to those ones who are interested your presentations? Yes?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Good. And then question to all panelists. Innovation for the sake of innovation. What is the balance between meeting your unclear consumer needs with committing resources?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a battle that I have every day. So, and I think it's understanding, if you have a clear vision, if you have a clear strategy, if you've got a clear direction that you need to get to, I think the answer becomes more obvious. You know, there is no right or wrong. I think it's about having a clear strategy and assigning a clear priority to how quick you want to get there. But yeah, you know, resourcing and how much time, how much effort you spend on it is a really challenging question that everyone is facing.
Nicolas, can you add something to that?
Sure. I also wrote something on the chat, by the way. I believe it's impossible today to make a strategy, a business model for the next 5 years. It's just a waste of time, sorry. So it's really tricky. To have a vision is good. Of course, you want to go to the moon, it's nice, or to Mars, it's nice, but let's go back to 2021, and I recommend to go for small steps. You know, like a startup, a corporate might do the same as a startup. Do a small experiment, try it out, analyze data, fix it and improve it. Because instead of spending millions and millions on a project which might launch in 3 years, man, how is the world in 3 years? Let's face it, no chance to know.
Nicolas, I totally agree with you. And personal experience for me is I find it much better doing 10 small, quick experiments than waiting 6 months to do one big, massive killer experiment that may just be too late or the wrong product.
Yeah.
And it's also, I find, you know, much better to launch a product or service that's maybe 70%, 80% of the way there today wait and wait and wait and wait 2-3 years time to try and develop the perfect product or the perfect service, you will just be too late and you will miss the boat and miss the opportunity. And I think it's important to quickly and rapidly evolve and iterate your idea and concept.
And also another question is, why is digitalization reducing need for being trusted, as we see consumers easily replacing known brands for completely unknown options? How would you comment?
That's a tough one. It is tricky. Nicolas, I don't know if you can help.
Yeah, to be honest, sorry, I was thinking about it. I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you repeat it, please?
I will read again. Why is digitalization reducing need for being trusted, as we see consumers easily replacing known brands for completely unknown options? It looks like that actually the question is that consumers really switch from known, from actually for a very long time available brands to completely new ones. But I think it's some sort of competition, right?
I agree. So I see the question, and I agree, by the way, the millennials, the young people, they are not loyal. They changed. The older generation, you know, they stay at the same banks for 30, 40 years. The young people, they change. And for me, there is one reason to change every time, and only one, is more convenience, more service. Why do we use Uber versus a normal taxi company? Because you need to call the company. You don't know when they will show up. On Uber, you have this information. You click, you pay, by the way, in the app. You don't have cash, etc. It's all digital is only a mean, and it's all about more convenience. For me, that's the ultimate objective. And people and young people, and that's correct, the convenience is the most important point, I would say. And just to mention also, I believe data trust, so trust is important, but in data, in privacy, as a kind of a next situation, we see some shitstorms all around, but mostly it's convenience is a driver for change.
And a few more questions. Are digital models altering the adoption curve? Example, bell curve is not necessarily valid in the future.
No, and I think that's why it's really important to understand who your early majority, late majority people are. I think you need to understand how you really target them. Because yeah, I totally agree. The bell curve is not the bell curve anymore, because people have access to way more information, way more data now than previously what they did have.
And another question, do you think the innovators innovators need state aid?
It's a good question. It's a tricky one. We are speaking also, by the way, with the Swiss government about it a bit. And Switzerland is a rather liberal country in general, and there is no industry politic as a topic, you know, like investing 1 billion in a subject. Now, if you look at Tesla received 400 millions, maybe much more if I don't have the right numbers. And if you look at China is investing billions and billions in privately held AI companies. And so I'm very mitigated on this question. Maybe there is a way of having a kind of mirror model, you know, like Israel did 30 years ago with the USMA project. If private investor is coming, the state will add the same amount of money. So maybe there is this kind of models which might be interesting. We are rather liberal, but let's look at the world. And there are good examples of very innovative companies who has received money from the state.
You see, we have actually also a desire of the state to respond to this question. So, Simon.
Exactly. No, I would add to what Nicolas said, that in Switzerland, indeed, we are not used to intervene. So no interventionism, no industrial policy, indeed. However, what we can do is make sure that the general framework conditions are the best possible conditions for innovation, for digitalization. Make sure that the legislative framework is up to date, and make sure that the education is also adapted to the situation. And maybe if I come back to one thing you said, Nicolas, you said that there was the danger of the digital divide. And here we have to maybe think about no one left behind strategy. And here the state maybe should make sure that there is not this divide. But except for that, in Switzerland, we leave it to the market and to the companies to innovate. It's not the state that will have the best ideas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, dear gentlemen. So friends, we have quite a number of good insights and advices. So let's be diversified, diverse. Let's create, let's question everything, and we will have more harmony in our lives. So I'd like to wish everyone to be really maximum at the best way adopted to the new reality and be as innovative as possible, so that to reach actually stage 1, which David actually explained in his nice presentation. And we will send both presentations to the interested parties. Thank you very much to all panelists for very nice set of insights, and let's meet in the future both offline and online. So good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.